All right, real talk here. I've always thought that I have been someone that's suffered with ADHD. You know, it's something it's talked about all the time, right? We hear about the symptoms of it. So I always just assumed, heck, I probably am ADD or ADHD. Well, the crazy reality is at some point in our lives, over 20% of us will end up experiencing symptoms of ADHD that are literally far enough to be considered clinical diagnosis. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone has to go out and get medicated. You see, I read a lot from a specific doctor named Dr. Clifford Lazarus. Now, Dr. Clifford Lazarus focuses a lot on the psychology of ADHD and how you can really start to work with it without medication. I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you if you should or shouldn't take medication for ADHD. But what I am going to tell you is what I have done to help myself get more focused and ultimately be the best in business, the most focused at home, and the most focused on my workouts, allowing me to get in the best possible shape. So I want to give you 3 simple tricks that you can use to help yourself get more focused and feel better overall. The first one is to work smarter. It sounds so vague. What's the difference between working hard and working smart? It really comes down to time management. You see, when we're dealing with these ADHD type tendencies, a lot of times we get absolutely chaotic in our minds thinking about all the different things that we need to do. So I want you to focus on something called chunking. I want you to chunk your time. I want you to really get strict about chunking your time and allocating specific tasks at different times within the day. The other thing that you want to do is you want to focus on taking the right kind of breaks. Now I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail. It comes down to something called the mast versus distributed process. What that means is that the body and the mind work really well working in chunks and working in sprints where we are focused. You see, anytime multitasking comes into the equation, we are reducing our effectiveness at that given task by over 50%. But we can't always commit to staying focused. We have so many different things happening. We have different tabs open on our computers. We have our cell phones going off. We have all these things that are diverting our attention from what we really need to work on. So I want you to focus on working on one task and allowing yourself to stay focused on that one task while mitigating all other potential distractions. Then I want you to take 5 to 10 minutes every hour and completely goof off. Allow yourself to get distracted. Allow yourself to goof off, but do something fun. Go play video games. Go run outside for a minute. Be a kid and flat out be goofy. But there's one rule that you have to follow. You have to set an alarm. Set an alarm so that you're not doing it for any longer than 10 minutes. So what it comes back to is this mast versus distribution process. That'll help you get really focused on what is chunked and what needs to get done versus what is absolutely goof off time and allows you to reset. Doing this also reduces the negative impact of changing gears. So one of the things that I used to deal with all the time was breaking my continuity of thought. Okay, I knew that I had to be focused, but a lot of times I would start overanalyzing and overthinking about what I had to do an hour later. It would force me to start thinking, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to change gears. I'd start stressing out about the task I'm presently working on because I'm thinking about changing gears. You may not realize this, but every time you change directions and change gears, it takes you a good 20 to 25 minutes to get back in the zone again. So you need to focus on your priorities, orient the most important tasks at your most opportune times of the day when you feel like you have the most energy, and don't forget to goof off. The next one is what Dr. Lazarus calls the anti-procrastination, and I had to take this because I absolutely love it. And I have thought of this, I just never gave it an actual name. You see, what's interesting is he talks a lot about something I talk about even in my live broadcast videos that I've done, and that is the fact that action precedes motivation. What that means is you are more apt to be motivated to continue to do something than you would be motivated to start. So when you start taking action on something, all of a sudden you get this perpetual motivation that gets rolling that allows you to stay focused, because we all know if you're passionate about something, you're doing something that you enjoy or something that you're super hyper focused on, you can stay focused on it and you can see it to completion and get the job done. Doesn't it bother you to leave a job completely unfinished? Well, yeah, you want to set it up in such a way where you can focus on it and you can get the job done. So the way that you execute that is with something called task activating thoughts. That means you are actually taking action with your mind. What am I going to do? You're going to plan. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Task activating thoughts. You are activating the task within your mind rather than just thinking about it. Big difference between motivation and inspiration. Being inspired doesn't mean that you are really taking action on the thing. Motivation doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking action. Taking action is the only thing that means taking action. Motivation follows, and that's what carries you through the rest of the task. So if you focus on that and just get started, it makes a huge difference if you have an ADHD prone mind. The last, and honestly the most simple thing, is to plan. Virtually every single successful person that I have ever met has been someone that creates and executes a plan on a daily basis. They don't do this because they're obsessed. They do this because they know that that is how they operate. You see, it's not a bad thing to have this ADHD style mind. That's what allows us to really get things done and have a lot of hyper attention to detail and just to overall be a good business person or overall be successful in anything you put your mind to. You just have to channel it. Just like a map is your guide geographically, a plan that dictates how you spend your time is like a map through time. And if you're traveling without a map, or you're traveling without a GPS, there's a very good chance you will just be wandering aimlessly. So execute that plan the day before when you can step back and take an objective look at the day ahead of you. Give yourself an honest plan when you're not exhausted or when you're not anxious on what you can do to get the most out of your day, to harness that focus and harness that ADHD energy that you've got into being the best version of yourself. As always, keep it locked in here on my videos, and I'll see you in the next one.